Hello, this is Soundout here, and welcome back to another Soundout review. Today we'll be taking a look at the Power Rangers Ninja Steel Line of Fire Fortress Zord. Now, we're here on my floor, mostly because this thing is gigantic and I really had no other way of filming it, so welcome to the floor. This was released as a Toys R Us exclusive in 2017 for the holiday season and retailed for $125. Now, for a lot of people, that was too much, which was very evident when Toys R Us went out of business a few months later, and every store had at least 150 of these. Eventually, they did get clearanced out, and my copy here was actually given to me by a friend who I will link his Twitter in the credits here, because he was super awesome and got it for me because I was out of town when Toys R Us put them on sale for like 70% off or whatever, got the price down to like $30. So he picked one up for me and he gave it to me for Christmas. So thank you very much. I really do deeply appreciate that. So continuing forward, this was a bit of a controversial move by Bandai. There was a lot of discussion and debate on how they were going to tackle Lion Hao. For those that don't know, Lion Hao was a very large mecha for Shuriken Sentai Ninja, and people were like, oh, that's not going to fit in Bandai's normal $35 price point. I mean, here's Lion Hao. It's also fairly large. As you can see, the approach taken was that, oh, let's not make it smaller and try to get it to fit in, but make it bigger. And really, that may have been the best choice, because when I'm thinking about it, I don't see any way Lion Hao could have been compacted into a $35 price point. Scaled up, pretty much works. Now, I say pretty much because now it's sort of out of scale with the rest of the Zords, but we'll get into that in a bit. The clever marketing behind the Lion Fire Fortress Zord was not as a giant Zord, but also as a figure playset. Now, what do I mean? Well, if you notice, this thing is pretty large. It's almost, I think it's about 2 feet tall, but it's actually now scaled to the 5-inch figure. So it doesn't come in any figures, but you know, I take the Lion Fire Red Ranger from the Super Ninja Steel line. You can open the mouth here, and much like the small Aka Ninja figure that came with Lion Hao, you can actually have the 5-inch figure sit in the mouth. Now, this is really cool because I think this is the first time we technically have a Zord that's scaled to the action figures, properly scaled, because this is how it's done in the show. So I gotta give them credit for that. This is the first action figure scaled Zord we've gotten, and I do like it, but there are a few drawbacks. First of all, this thing was $125. The fact that I got it for, you know, a lot less doesn't negate the fact that this thing was overpriced. For being $125, when you compare to other things in the market, the Titans Return Triptychon was about $25 more. The Playmates Voltron was about the same price. And what you have with this is you have a lot of kind of bad plastic quality. And I don't mean to just knock on this forever, but these come off way too easily. These are the back legs. They're supposed to support. Pretty much everything on this thing is hollow. A lot of unpainted detail. The wheels are okay, they're not the best, but mostly these connections. They use these connections on the Zord all over the place, and it's fine for the most part, but for some reason the back leg ones don't hold up very well. So if you're playing with this thing, the other one just popped off. So if a kid's playing around, it's just going to pop the legs off. They don't hold in at all, and that's a real issue. Like, I have to say that for all the good points with this, this is not one of them. The back legs are the support system. It's where the most weight is on the figure, and they don't stay on very well. They're also hard to get back on if you can't line it up right. And then we get to some other issues, like this part comes off, and it's just like the more rough play that goes through this, which again, this is a kid's toy, so it should be able to survive rough play, the more that it just kind of pops apart. Another issue is like stress marks here. This was just, the plastic was warped out of the box. Not really much I could do about that. But we'll just kind of get this back on here. Yeah, it's just like, you know, this is supposed to be a big old play set for kids to play with their figures, and it doesn't have the best support, which is a shame. I really wish it did just have a little bit more back leg support. But getting it back down, trying to get this leg back on is a pain. It won't. There you go. All right, let's get this thing back down here. One of the issues that came up while doing that is the Ninja Stars. For example, its back. These are the stars that are the weapons for the Zord. Yes, not only are they hollow, they don't have any way of pegging together. So because they don't have any way of pegging together, when you put them into the Zord, they're just kind of loosely back there, so if you tip the Zord at all, they just fall out. That's kind of annoying as well. So going into handheld view here, we're going to look at the 28 different foot pegs inside the Fortress. Now, most of these are just kind of like, it's a nice way to fill space. You can put all your Rangers here. Some are up here designed to have them hold the cannons. Ones up here are meant to replicate one of the features of the Lion Ha-Oh, which was having the Red Ranger stand on the top. Now you notice that despite me getting these lined up, he stands okay. Now, what I mean by stands okay means if I shake this too much, he just goes tipping over. Which is a shame, because really I think that should have just been perfectly sized. What it is that the foot pegs in the feet, at least with the one you want to use with the Megazord, they're too big. They're too big to fit most of the figures. So if you're like just standing them and they're fine, that's great. But as soon as you move it, fall over. So they're not really that great of foot pegs. It's got 2 missile launchers. They're pressure launched. They're okay. They actually do a pretty good distance. If you don't have as much force behind them, they still do pretty good. Honestly, nothing really to complain about. The missile launchers, incredibly hollow though. Again, this is a $125 toy. So moving along to the back section, this is actually my favorite feature they added. So for Lion Ha-Oh, this is just one solid piece, but for the Lion Fire Fortress Zord, you pull up on this handle and you get a removable jail cell. This is to trap villains in, and this is like a classic playset feature, is having a spot for the villains to go. The door slides open, you can put, villains in there, like Takahara, and you can just kind of, have them in this thing. And you could probably fit like a good 5 figures in there, if you squeeze them. And then you can kind of put it here, so you can have it like up, like a jail cell, like they have on the box. Or you can just be like, you know what? We don't even know you exist anymore. Which is what I wish I could do with Takahara from Ninja. But we can just pull this back out. It's really nice. It's a really good use of space, because otherwise there's really nothing to do with that much empty space, especially when this thing is made so much bigger. And this is really clever in engineering. I really do like that. I don't know why there's a helicopter pad landing, because I don't remember Ninja Steel having helicopters. But then again, they might have added that to the toy. The one takeaway with having this, as opposed to the original design, is that there is no place to connect the back half of the Bull Rider Megazord when you combine this with the other Megazords. And that's one major issue. Other than that, we're going to transform this guy and hope it goes well. So much like with Lion Ha-Oh, the transformation is fairly just cut and paste. First of all, pop the head off, pop the bottom shuriken off, stand him up, and from here we're just going to bring the arms down like this, plug the lion head on here, and plug the little hat on top. And then lastly, we're going to attach the pieces that already fell off the toy, which is the shuriken, and now we're done. If you want to add a little bit of flair, we'll take the Ninja Ranger Power, put him in there, line him up with the foot pegs, and now you've got your completed Lion Fire Fortress Zord. So I gotta say, this thing's pretty impressive. It's really large. This definitely felt like it was competing with the Transformers Titan class figures, especially since it's just big. It was Bandai being like, hey, we can do that too. And honestly, it turned out pretty good. The overall proportions are a lot better than Lion Ha-Oh, and the overall look, I think, is a lot stronger. It's very show accurate, and a lot of the details that were missing in the Fortress mode aren't really that big of an issue here in Megazord mode. And that, I gotta say, is a good quality to it. As usual, articulation is just the shoulders. Nothing exciting there. It's just shoulders. And when it comes down to it, that's pretty much all we need. The legs don't split or articulate, but that's okay because of the jail cell in place. And overall, I think it looks really good. This is the preferred method of display for me overall. Now, comparing it to Lion Ha-Oh, naturally, here is Lion Ha-Oh. What we have is a different in proportions. Like I said, Lion Ha-Oh is a lot more broad-shouldered. This is much more streamlined. I think it follows kind of Bandai of America's more, let's make it more show-accurate approach. Lion Ha-Oh here is a lot stockier, a lot shorter. He's got bigger feet. They kind of shorten the feet here, which was nice. And overall, I think that the Lion Fire Fortress Zord has the better look. Lion Ha-Oh, I think, has the better functionality. Now, what do I mean by functionality? Well, let's talk about electronics. So first up, Lion Ha-Oh, for those who don't remember from my review, the Shuriken had all the sounds, so everything was in here. They did not keep that gimmick for Ninja Steel, but they did add electronics to this guy. So we're going to take him out of here because what we're going to do is pull the head off and flip the switch. And then when you press the nose on the lion, you actually get several sound effects. So, several sound effects does mean a lot of generic sounds that we've heard in Bandai toys before, but its inclusion is nice, and I'll give it credit for that. Overall, I think that the Zord on its own is incredibly flawed as a Zord, but it can be a fun playset. One of the biggest issues is that the legs keep popping off. In this mode, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't throw out the stability if the back legs come off. It's fine. I do think it should have come with some special version of the Red Ranger, maybe like a one that had more paint or something, just to kind of beef up the quality and the cost. That would have been pretty nice. But we're not quite done with this review, as we do need to talk about its combination potential. So combination potential is interesting. So we're going to flip this guy around. He rotates just like Lion Ha-Oh did, except not as smooth. And now we have the backside. So on this side of the toy, you have sort of hands. What I mean by sort of hands is that with Lion Ha-Oh, the design elements were distinctively this hand shape, while these are just kind of vague. There is, I think, a way to attach the Bull Rider Megazord's legs as cannons, but it just looks really hollow here. I think that they slide in on the inside instead of going on top. But they do attach. You can't attach the rest of the Bull Rider. I don't have a Ninja Steel Megazord, but I do have a Shurikenjin, which is roughly the same size. So we're just going to kind of like pretend for a minute that I do have a Ninja Steel Megazord. And it's just going to kind of go in here. And you can kind of see, if I just hold it in place, that you get fairly close to what it actually is. Now, the foot design down here was specifically designed to be feet to hold the Megazord, so it had footrests. Here it's kind of up like it's on a high chair. It's not technically the most accurate thing, but it's also not the worst thing. I say that this combination could have turned out a lot worse, but because of the thinner, more lankier proportions, this is kind of the best they could do. The only real shame here is that you have most of a Bull Rider Megazord missing. So at the end of the day, it's kind of better just to turn this guy around, however hard that may be, and kind of leave him like this. I think this is probably the best mode to leave the Zord in. Now, of course, the question comes down to which is bigger? Is this the biggest Zord that Bandai of America has ever produced? I would go with an absolute yes, because in terms of height and size, there is only one other thing that gets anywhere close. As you can see, Pyramidas has finally lost his crown. This was the largest single Zord that Bandai of America produced. We don't include things like the Mighty Mammoth Zord because Bandai of America never released that. In my entire studies of having all the Megazords and lining them all up next to each other to see which is the tallest, this is the tallest single Zord. And I do mean single Zord. When you're talking about Zords, something like the Super Train, which isn't as tall, but that's a combination of 5. When you're talking about like the Thunder Ultra Zord, which is taller than him, that's a combination of 7. So you can't count those when you're talking about single Zords. The Lion Fire Fortress Zord is a single Zord, much like Pure Midas is. So in their last series of adaptation of Sentai 2 Power Rangers, Bandai of America did give us a new champion of the Zords. This is the largest single Zord ever released by Bandai of America, and it will never be out top because Bandai of America no longer produces Power Rangers toys. So congratulations to Lion Fire Fortress. There is one technicality we can rule out if you really want to keep King or Pure Midas here as as the largest. So as you can see in pyramid mode, Pyramidas just doesn't have any contender. Like, he's, half the length of the Fire Fortress. Now if we move Pyramida to carrier mode, then you can see that Pyramidas does outlength it just by an inch. Very close, but Pyramidas still longest single thing, but technically you never used the carrier mode outside of a combination, so Lion Fire Fortress Zord is still the largest single Zord in vehicle mode. So at the end of the day, is the Power Rangers Ninja Steel Lion Fire Fortress Zord any good? Yeah, there's some good stuff to it. Is it horrible? No. This is a very mediocre toy. The biggest issues that I've come up across this is that, well, the back support legs fall off when you're playing with the playset. Most of the pegs can't hold the figures in place when you're, again, playing with the Zord, and this thing has wheels, so it's meant to move. There's a lot of hollowness that causes some stability and integrity issues, things like the shurikens not being able to be stored in the Fortress mode very well. And overall, I just gotta say that it's not the worst thing Bandai of America ever made. It's not nowhere near the best either. I think this one just kind of ranges as being, it's a alright toy. And there's nothing wrong with having an alright toy. I think that overall, it definitely shouldn't have been sold for $125. I think this was in 100 or less. It might have sold a bit better in its initial run. And I think that overall, Bandai of America figured out how to take a very hard to adjust mecha like Lion Hao, which didn't fit in the normal price points, and make something cool out of it. The idea of turning it into a playset is genius. It's just the execution was a little off. Higher quality plastics and some extra stability on those back legs would pretty much all this thing needs. Other than that, it's really fun. It's a really fun playset that just gets hindered by some cheapness. I think Bandai of America's cheap plastic is essentially what hurt this thing in the long run, and that's a shame because it really could have been probably one of the best Power Rangers toys of all time if it just had a little bit more quality control. So that does it for this review. Stay tuned for future Soundout reviews here on this channel. Be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on a video. Also, be sure to check out Hero Club, hero-club.com for all your Power Rangers news and more. More Power Rangers stuff is on the horizon, especially with Hasbro now in charge of the franchise. And this kind of closes out my Bandai of America look back. I want to do maybe some more videos, kind of doing a retrospective look back at Bandai of America's history. But for the most part, this was one of the last Bandai of America this actually was the last Power Rangers item I got from Bandai of America. And as much as there was a lot of animosity towards the end of years, and there was a lot of stuff that I think wasn't the best, they did have the license for 25 years, and they gave us a lot of great stuff in that time frame. I'm sorry to see that they did dip in quality so much in the last few years to the point where I just didn't want to buy anything anymore. And I'm glad that we're moving on to new horizons and trying something different. I think that we all could benefit from a little bit new and different in our lives. So that does it for this review. Thank you again to my friend for sending this to me, because I probably would have picked it up at the discounted price if I was here in town when that happened. But he was able to get it for me, and I really do appreciate that. Lion Hao was one of my favorite mecha designs, and this toy is just a giant version of that. So I can't help but love it for that. But as a reviewer, I still have to say it's fairly mediocre. That does it. Till next time, this is Soundout saying goodbye.